Greetings and konnichiwa, and welcome back to the Onyx Tavern Vlog series on ToQger. Today we will be covering Station 5 of ToQger. And before we actually get started, just an interesting fact, when looking up the name of this episode, I've actually found 3 different translations of the name. The name of the episode on Wikipedia is The Missing Other Side of the Tracks. The Ranger Wiki episode name is The Other Side of the Line Has Vanished. And actually my favorite from the translation that I found on YouTube, Beyond the Vanishing Tracks. And again, I don't know anything about Japanese language as of yet, but I just find it curious that there are 3 different titles. But for the sake of simplicity, and just because it's a cool title, I'll be referring to Station 5 as Beyond the Vanishing Tracks. So I think that's an appropriate title for it, and there's a lot to get into, so let's go ahead and get started. So the basic plot of this episode is really simple when you think about it, because there isn't much going on in this episode. If anything, this is actually a stepping stone to the next series of events that we'll get to. So basically, the ToQgers end up in a town that's being attacked by the bucket monster who is stealing everybody's food, causing them to be depressed and sad, and that's what's fueling General Schwartz's army and so forth. I know General Schwartz is not the main bad guy, but I still think, man, he's really cool. And so it's pretty simple. They fight the monster and they bring food back to the station, and then everybody's happy. I want to talk mainly about the plot about it, because the whole idea is that the monster is attacking them to steal their food, and thus it's going to make them, really depressed. When we first see the bucket monster, he's stealing food from a family, and the mother's basically like, "Don't take it, that's all we have, or our children will starve," and everybody's really hungry. So it makes me wonder a couple of things. One, how long has this monster been attacking, and how long has he been taking the food, basically? Because if everybody is starving at this point, it has to be more than, say, a couple of days, maybe even a week. I think most people can go 2 or 3 days without food. I don't know about that, but for them all to be starving like that, and for him to eat the food in an entire town, and I'm going to assume this place has like a grocery store, or the grocery store, or some place to get, I mean, he's like worse than the pudgy pig, it seems, who could devour the entire world's supply of food in hours. This guy, I don't know how long he's been doing this exactly. It's not really indicated other than everybody's starving, everybody's hungry. So he's taking all the food, but 2 main questions come to mind. Is one, where are the local authorities? Because you would think at some point somebody would be like, "Oh, hey, food is gone, and we gotta bring trucks in, we gotta bring National Guard in," or something like that. I think this is a similar criticism of Power Rangers. We don't see local authorities doing anything, or any type of military. I know Japan technically doesn't have a standing army and so forth, but somebody should have done something if he's been going on for this long. And then second of all, how come nobody just leaves and goes to get food and bring food into the city? Or just leave altogether? Because I would think that if your town's being overrun by a monster, particularly one that's stealing your food and has been doing so for several days or even a couple of weeks, you would go at some point to, I don't know, go get food. So I know this is also a criticism of the previous episodes, like why doesn't everybody just go ahead and leave? So I have to imagine there are crows at the border of the town preventing people from escaping, but I also wonder about people coming in. So the premise is already kind of messed up. Again, stealing food and making them hungry, I kind of get that. Again, Power Rangers did that with Pudgy Pig. I'm assuming Zoo Ranger did that with Dora Pig and so forth. But just the idea that they're so isolated like this. And the town doesn't necessarily seem to be isolated like it's in the middle of nowhere. But they treat it like they can't do anything else, or at least they're choosing not to do anything else. So it's basically just, fight off the monster, and if he takes our food, he takes our food, but there's nothing we can do about it. So that's a little bothersome for me. The next issue I have is also, kind of like where we get in here. Now the Rangers get into the town, and I'm going to talk about that whole thing about the missing tracks and the shadow line here in a minute. But what really kind of bothers me is that there's this subplot, or maybe the B plot, or the A plot, I don't know. of Wright running into some campers along with Minnie Mouse. Yes, look at her hat. Tell me that's not Minnie Mouse right there. But these 5 campers, and Wright learns the situation. He goes out and catches fish and things like that. And what I thought to myself is, during the episode, why are we with these campers? What are they going to do in like the 3rd act? Are they going to come in and help? Are they going to go teach the people to be self-reliant like Wright taught them to go catch food and stuff like that? No, there's no reason we are with these campers. The fact only to split up Wright from the other Rangers and have him, well, it's not even learn a lesson. What Wright ends up doing based on this experience is that he takes off some sort of childish revenge on the monster. He literally ties him up in the middle of the forest and eats the fish in front of him to. Now, I like this on one level, but I despise it on another. So this whole plot about Wright meeting the campers. First of all, I don't know why we spent the budget on 5 speaking extras, basically. You could have achieved the same effect by having the Rangers together instead of splitting them up. There was no reason to split them up this time, because Wright doesn't do anything significant. True, you can argue that at the end of the episode he talks about how he saw the tanker Ressha, and they gotta go find it, but that could have been achieved a different way. But looking at it with the campers as it is, it doesn't really do anything that could not have been accomplished with all the Rangers together, basically. Because again, the campers don't learn anything. They don't contribute to the plot at all except complaining, basically. That's all they really seem to go ahead and do. So I'm really against that. Then Wright gets this really vindictive, revenge-filled lust against the bucket monster for making people suffer from not eating. Now, I look at 2 factors to this. One, again, we're looking at Wright as someone who doesn't have his memories and is potentially still a child, basically. They do call him childish or childish at heart. And we've seen that with other characters, kind of like Jan and Geki Ranger, but it was a different circumstance. Here he has no memories whatsoever, but without knowing his true personality, he's able to have this vindictive, again, this vengeance on this monster for just taking people's food. And it's really bizarre. Again, it's motivated by the fact that he has no memory, so he could essentially be a grown-up child, and this is something that a child would go ahead and do. And 2, he's motivated by hunger because he can have breakfast. So he's starving and he's childish. So I can see, like, the scene where he ties him up is taunting him with fish. I can see it as a little kid doing that, but that's also something a bully would go ahead and do. So I don't know what message they're trying to send about their Red Ranger character, that he's a childish bully. That's basically what he is in the story. And the thing is, there is no great loss here. And let me kind of back up on that. Yes, everybody is hungry. Yes, everybody is starving. But as far as the story tells us, nobody has died yet. There has been no great consequence here from people just being hungry. Even if we assume it's been a couple of days, and again, nobody can get food in or out. Now, if somebody had died from this, then yeah, I can see that there's a big issue with it. But the fact is, they've just been hungry for a couple of days, and this is no different than what the other monsters are doing. Frankly, the Battle Royale monster from a couple of episodes back, that should have made Wright more vindictive, because he was almost, in essence, that monster was making them kill each other, which ultimately could have been the result of it. We don't know, because never really elaborated within the series. So basically he's saying that Hunger Games monster is more dangerous and more important to his time than Battle Royale monster, which is ironic when you consider that Hunger Games is a complete ripoff of Battle Royale. So there you go. It just doesn't make any sense for his character. And the weird thing is, like, the Rangers point out that they remember him being this way. Now, it's not really a flashback, or they don't learn any new information about their past, which we've been getting in almost every episode up till this point. We don't even get a flashback to anything. So it's really bizarre that they put this in here, and it makes me wonder, who is Wright when he has his memories? Who was he before he became a ToQger? That's mainly what I would like to go ahead and see from this, and I hope we kind of get an answer. But the whole thing about the campers, that's superfluous, that's... Again, I don't know why they wasted the budget on it. In an episode, by the way, that you can obviously tell in a lot of scenes where they're obviously using models and other times they're using CG. I would seriously bet I get those 5 kids to go ahead and speak. They could have used that budget they spent on them to do a lot more model work, which would have looked a lot more impressive. Because the thing is, when they show the models in this episode, beautiful, well done. When they show the CG in here, it's like, really? That's the best you can go ahead and do? And I've been harking on this for a while. I think I've told you guys, but I really don't like the CG that they have in ToQger or the Super Sentai series. They really need to get like some sort of new software packet or invest into it because the CG just doesn't look good, and I wish they would just go back to models. But if they do CG, they really have to up their game. They really got to go ahead and make it look better than what they've had. Now, the big significance of this episode is it leads into finding the tank Ressha, but in this episode we are introduced to the Car Carrier Ressha. And there are just so many things about this that just boggle the mind. Raptor called it the most unimpressive mech ever. And I'm not going to go to the same degree that he does, but I think it's the most ill-conceived mech. So let's look at here's basically what happens. They're attempting to go into Starving Station, which is the corrupted name by the Shadow Line, and the tracks have run out. They can't get over. So, the best way to get over is to call the Car Carrier Ressha, which they just happen to have, and who knows where it is right now, and get in the cars that it stores, and basically Evel Knievel their way into the town. First problem. They can change into a robot, right? So why can't they just transform to the ToQger and walk over there? I know it seems like a low-tech way of doing it, but it's the simplest way, right? And second, it's been established that the Rainbow Line can produce its own tracks in front of it. It doesn't actually need to be on an established train line. If that is the case, then why not at least go around to the edge where you can't get into and at least have them walk from there? Because what eventually results in this is that Wright goes first, overshoots the mark, and gets a severe concussion and starts bleeding, which is how he ends up with the campers, basically. So that's it's just like, I don't get that. Why is it that a broken track is such a big issue to these people? They can either A, go around because they can produce their own tracks, or B, turn to the ToQger and walk. Now what we find out actually later is that the Car Carrier Ressha can actually serve the top of it. It's constructed in such a way that the Rainbow Line can actually pass over it like a broken rail system. Similar to the way the Falcon Zord worked in the first Power Rangers movie. Now, in that particular case, it is a big coincidence, but it doesn't also make sense seeing there's no tracks in the back of the Falcon Zord and there's no electricity going through since it was essentially a monorail. That all being said, the thing about the Car Carrier Ressha is that it has to get down into the water because they're crossing a river, and then the Rainbow Line has to go over it. So I can believe that there are tracks on top that it would go ahead and cross. But then later the Car Carrier Ressha has to get out of the water on its own to form with the Megazord. How does it get out? How does it get out on its own? And if that one mech can do it by itself, why can't the other Ressha do it? Again, that doesn't make a lot of sense there. And in the situation, what if the broken part of the track is longer than the Car Carrier Ressha? It's good for this one episode, I guess, but for the long-term viability of this, because keep in mind, when you design a robot, it should not be to service the plot of the particular episode, or even to service the plot of the series. It has to be fully functional. Name me another instance in which the Car Carrier Ressha would work if the tracks go out. What if it's 8 miles long and there's no track? Then what are you going to go ahead and do? And the only reason this is actually a big issue here is because they're over water. If there was no river there was no reason to use the Car Carrier mech. They could, again, go as far as they can, get out, and walk. Because the Rainbow Line's prevented from getting in, but the Rangers are not. Speaking of which, again, the way that they get in is the Evel Knievel and the cars that come in the Car Carrier Ressha. Now, I know it's based on an actual car from a train. that carries new model cars. I mean, we got a line here running from Seattle to Chicago and back and forth and who knows where else. So I know what they are. But you're creating a science fiction series. Couldn't you have created something that was more useful to the team? Because again, what's the main problem? Wright overshoots his mark, gets a concussion, and ends up with the campers. That's the problem. So why is it Car Carrier? Why couldn't you have like little jets or helicopters or other air travel vehicles? Because yes, the Rainbow Line can travel in the air, which still they can't get over the river into where it needs to go. But they have to jump their way over, which is far more dangerous. And what's actually interesting is once they land, it disappears on impact. Yeah, they get over and they fall out of the cars. They don't even get a chance to walk out appropriately. So why aren't they jets? Why can't they use it to fly? And yes, they use the cars in an attack formation when they do it with the ToQger, but you can still do that with planes. My hope for the eventual Ressha that we get, particularly the Safari Ressha, is I always thought is like you have the train, which really doesn't have a lot of combat features, but its sole purpose is actually to carry another mecha. So like the idea I had for the Safari Ressha is that it would have like a giant robot animal, like a lion or a tiger or an elephant or something that will just jump out. The Safari Ressha does nothing itself except for like arm connection, whatever. But the fact that it carries in a robot inside is the cool part. And the Car Carrier Ressha follows a similar principle, is that it itself doesn't really do anything, but the cars inside is what's important. But again, they're cars. Why are they not something more useful that they can go ahead and have? I'm sure that people can transport jets or something in there. You can make them small enough, but again, it'd be much more useful. Then they wouldn't crash land and they wouldn't overshoot their marks. It should be much more useful than what it is, because I guarantee you right now, we'll see the cars later on. I mean, they actually built a little set for the cockpit, so we'll see those again. But the fact that the Car Carrier Ressha is going to go ahead and have like the Evel Knievel jumping thing, I don't think we're going to see that again, except maybe towards the finale. And the fact that it's going to be in place of a broken track, I don't see that happening ever again. So again, just kind of wasted potential on this. It was an ill-conceived design, that they designed it for the one episode, it seems, but they didn't design it for long-term productivity, long-term use. That's the way I would go ahead and put it. And, you know, again, this episode's really a plot point to get to the major issues, which is the tank Ressha, which we're going to see in the next episode, and the fact that General Schwartz is tapping the Rainbow Line. That's his big story contribution, is that he is eavesdropping on their conversations, and it's going to lead into future plots of him finding the other Ressha before they do, probably corrupting them and doing whatever. But the fact is, he now has an inline to what the ToQgers are doing. So that's very important, and that's not even brought up till like the end of the episode. We see him during the first act, like listening to something, but we don't know what it is. Then we find out at the end that, oh, he's eavesdropping, which I think is going to be very disastrous down the line, because I don't think they're going to easily find this. It's not like by the next episode they're going to go ahead and say, oh, look what's on the outside of the hull. It's going to be they'll probably be 3/4 of the way through before they even realize that they've been, monitored, like the NSA. That's probably what's going to go ahead and happen. And one just final note, and I guess is in the overall story, is that the conductor and ticket are talking about that the Shield Ressha and the Car Carrier Ressha are the only auxiliary Ressha that they have, that the others are missing. This brings up a number of issues. One, how long has the Rainbow Line been around that you've gotten to the point that you're missing mechas? And we'll actually see later when they find the Diesel O, in the promotional images for this episode, Wright's in the cockpit and there's tons of cobwebs. So how long has the Rainbow Line been going on? How long have they been missing? And how do you lose them? I mean, we, again, see the tank Ressha is embedded in the side of a mountain. How does that happen? And where exactly how do you lose Ressha? If we assume they're on the track the entire time, I've never heard of anybody losing a train unless the bridge blew up. Okay? I mean, this is not Bridge Over the River Kwai. It can't be that every time they lost one, somebody blew up a bridge or something. That's what I'm trying to go ahead and figure out. So this opens a number of questions about the Rainbow Line, and frankly, the competency of the conductor and ticket. Because right now, they're not really doing anything for me as far as being wise or anything like that. And the fact that they're so mysterious, or the fact that they don't want to tell you anything, it is kind of bothersome. And the whole thing about the Ressha, that's again, how does it get embedded in the side of a mountain? Unless there was like a great battle where you had other ToQgers that perished in battle, and that's how they got lost. But the fact that they've probably been on a track this whole time, because I'd like to know, again, how long has the Shadow Line been established, how long has the Rainbow Line been established, because neither seem to be answered in this episode, and I don't believe we even have an answer from the previous episodes. Well, that's all I really have about this episode. I really have some issues with it. I think in the grand scheme of things, this is just one of those big filler episodes. And again, other than General Schwartz and the location of the tank Ressha, nothing really significant was gained in this episode. And I think people are primarily going to remember it for the Car Carrier Ressha if it becomes significant down the line. Which, by the way, I actually ordered the Car Carrier Ressha a couple weeks ago from Amazon, which means it'll be here by July. Yeah. So I'll get to see it up close and personal. But yeah, very underwhelming episode. Nothing of big note except all these plot holes. And I wish I knew. I wish I could talk to the writer of this episode. I'm just like, what are you thinking? Because it just seems to me that there are so many things that could have been trimmed down this episode or rewritten to be much better. And why they didn't do it, who knows? But I want to thank you guys for listening today. I hope you enjoyed this. Next time I come back, we will be talking about station number 6, where they will be finding the tank Ressha, and I believe this will be the first actual appearance of General Schwartz as far as him interacting with the ToQgers. So we'll see how that goes. Otherwise, I want to thank you guys for listening. Have a good evening, and the tavern is now closed.